Good evening. My name is Mike Raine, and I am trying out for the preacher.
Well, our older one would be easy to replace, so go ahead.
Okay. Hey, listen.
Our older one would be easy to replace, so go ahead.
Yes, he would. Preacher next door retired 2 years ago, and they still haven't found anyone.
You mean over here at the Baptist church?
Not there. Here. That's our fellowship over it.
I was texting with Patrick, and I said, by the way, you think you made a mistake, or we still got a job open?
Yeah. Now, I can't cheat because someone else got the same book I do. So oh man, you all got them. I'm going to change subject. All right, our announcements tonight is George's Wolf's funeral will be tomorrow at 2 o'clock here at the building. Kiri Bila had successful hysterectomy surgery. Steve and LaDonna's open house will be this Friday at 6 o'clock. It's come and go. And they'll let you know what time to leave. Elf party Sunday at 8 o'clock.
The van, if somebody wants to ride the van.
Who's riding the van? Who's? Oh, okay.
I'll be here at 5. We're ready to leave at 5:45.
All right, 5:45. The van will leave from here going to Steve and LaDonna's. And I've got him one light bulb for Christmas.
We'll have fun. We'll see good Christmas lights.
All right, turn to the book of Ecclesiastes. Who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes?
Solomon.
Who? There are some discussions about who wrote the book, I personally believe. And he talks about he was king. He was, I never had heard it debated until a few years ago, but there are several. I believe it's Solomon. Personally, I believe that it is Solomon's life that he is trying to teach us. Things to stay away from, things to adhere to. And he closes out the book by what? All right, the expression, vanity of vanity, all is vanity. And then he talks about the things under the sun. Everything under the sun. And when he uses that expression, God has not talked about it. And Solomon is just talking. And that's why he said worthless. He sees no hope. And then in the last chapter, he comes out and he talks about what God has said. And he talks about fear God and keep his commandments. You're hearing less and less about commandments anymore. Why is that? Want to do what I want. I'll tell you what let's do. Let's have a discussion group and we'll decide whether God... They actually have scholars who now get together and have been for years, trying to decide what should and shouldn't be in the Bible, what God didn't say. And I'm thinking, All right, so living a life that matters. What would make this building, let me rephrase that, how do you feel when you see this building driving past it? Do what? Home? What else? Brothers and sisters live? I wish to goodness I'd paint this. No, it's not Ed's job. It's all of our job. And so, does the community even know that we're here? If we're talking about a life that matters, does the community even know that we're here? And if they do, what do they know about us? It's what?
A lot of it's misconceptions.
All right, misconception.
I know we don't have a
We're too literal.
They know we don't have a piano.
How do they know that?
They won't hear it when they drive by.
I said, if you're driving,
You can hear the band out here.
I told you what was so funny. When I lived in Tiptonville, I stopped by late one night and welcomed the Presbyterian minister and his wife. Got to know them real well. They ring their bell at 9:30, which means you got 30 minutes to get to church. And I went up there one day at 9 o'clock and rang it on Sunday morning. I enjoy life. All right, a life that matters. Let's turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1, let's read 1 through 11. And the words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. I wonder who that could be. And so we're going to have a debate on it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanities. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? Would you answer that question? What answer would you give? Is there any good at all the toiling that we do?
Well, God gave Adam a job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's how you live. If you just sit down, then you'll die.
Yeah, we're designed to be
All right, so let me ask you this question then. When is labor and toil not a vanity or worthless? Vanity means worthless. When is it not a worthless cause? Do what?
When we're doing something for God.
When you're doing something for God? What else?
other people.
Other people?
But he also tells us if we won't work, neither shall we eat. So some of it is for ourselves too.
All right. The worthlessness comes when it comes to the cause. And so it's vanity, it's worthless. If that's your goal, it's worthless. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Be careful. Be careful how we use the word forever. I believe that at the end of time, this earth is going to be burned up, and we're going home to be with our Lord. And so it's not a matter of forever is forever. It's as long as it lasts. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. He was wise, wasn't he? You get a heavy rain, what's going to happen? Oh, man, this is the end of the world. It's all over. Verse 8. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is that true? Do what? Anything that really matters. And notice what he's talking about. He's talking about nature. It doesn't cycle. Is there a thing, verse 10, of which it is said, see, this is new. It has been already, and the age before us. There is no remembrance of the former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. The first part of this discussion has to do with the idea of, if I leave, I've told Donna, and I'm not a cheapskate, but if I have to pay $6,000 for a funeral, I'd rather pay $500 and send the rest to Africa where it do some good. I'm going to the ground. I want to be cremated. And so if I die while I'm still here, and that's very possible, and Donna does not have a funeral, that's the way that I want it. I want my ashes to be taken up to our farm, and I want the boys with the shovels and Rachel to dig a hole and put me in there. My question is this: who really knows that you have been in this space? Well, let me ask this question. I'm going to stand here till I get some answers. What eternal good have you done in someone's life? You'll never know the completeness of it. Revelation, our works do follow us. God will tell us what every cup of cold water has done. And I want you to notice it does not just say a cup of cold water. It says a cup of cold water what? To one of these, the least immature child. The cup of water that he's talking about there has to do with Christianity. Christians treating Christians right. If a man does not work, Paul says to Timothy, neither shall he eat. If you've got brethren and you have an agape feast and you have brethren who will not work, you can remove them from the meal, is what he's saying there. He's not talking about the word, he's talking about the church. And it may sound mean, but we have forgotten community. Why in the world do I have to work for 60, 70 years so I can help someone who's not going to?
That is kind of quizzical to me because this is coming from Jewish people. And they are so fixed on generations and keeping up with the history and stuff like that. And somebody comes in and writes something like this is really profound.
It is. Not only in their generations, not only with the generation, but in their community. they would live. In other words, if you had a street, all the Raines would live on it. And in the block, the extended family. I was trying to get a handle on Mabusa and Anosi. Mabusa Bernard. They would say, Bernard. And of the Bernard, you have Mabusa. Of the Raine clan, you have who? Mike. And so their last name is their first name. Their first name is a clan name. And so if you'd say, well, in the clan of Raine, where would I find Mabusa? And so the Jews lived on the street. Their extended family lived on the block. And so the prodigal son could not come home and be welcomed by anybody of that family. They would not tolerate it. That's why the father ran out. And so you've got Solomon here. And Solomon letting us know, what have you done eternally in someone's life that matters? Greg just baptized who? Who do you baptize? You know she's yours. A granddaughter. All right. And so there is an eternal difference that he has made in her life. I had a friend, and as we were walking down the street of Inverness, when someone was smiling at him, he would stop them and thank them for the smile. How many people have never heard a kind word? And a kind word can make an eternal difference. And this is what Solomon is trying to get. And we have the idea, if I move away from church, and I tell you something that bothers me, brethren, and I'm not complaining. Why is it that people just leave the church? They don't say, Mark, we would like a meeting with you all. Here's what we've decided to do. They just leave. And then they get upset because of what? We didn't miss them. Well, you know, I leave this whole church just, it will go to pieces. I won't. It's the Lord's church, not Mike's church. And so we have this idea that if I leave, this egocentric Mike, that things somehow are just not going to survive. What else does Solomon bring out that captures your attention? All right, write this. If you don't have the book, write this down. Psalms 1 will be our lesson next week. Blessed is the man who does not stand with the ungodly. We're going to talk about living a victorious life. So next week, all you have to do is read Psalms 1 and look at the victory that we have in our lives. Now, are there people who just simply go to church and the minute we're through, they leave? And it's not because of traffic or anything else. That's their lifestyle. when I moved to Tiptonville, and Tiptonville is a very unusual place. It's the very northeast, it's the very northwest corner of Tennessee. Nothing pretty about it. You have Reelfoot Lake. The preacher would get up, and if he saw you associating with a religious person in town, your name was called from the pulpit. Why they ever allowed that is beyond me. And so I kept hearing, Michael English, Michael English, Michael English. I knew he'd preached there. And so finally one day in an elders meeting, I asked them, who is this Michael English? He hadn't preached there in 20 years. But members of the church and the community were still talking about Michael English. It was good. He had made a difference. They had taken note of it. And so he goes on, he talks about lives that matter are those, and here's what we try to do. We try to save the integrity of God by misapplying the word fear. Fear God and keep his commandments. That was the end of Solomon's life. He starts by talking about have a life that matters. Do something that makes a difference in people's lives. And by the way, Solomon was an extremely hard king. He overtaxed. He overspent. And the only story that we seem to remember about Solomon is what?
Splitting the baby.
All right. Cutting the baby in two. God, give me.
Think about him though, I mean, in his early life, you know, he was considered God's chosen and blessed and all that, and then he just went,
Why did he just go?
well, because power corrupts,
All right.
and he's got all these women, and as I'm sure many of them were political type marriages and things like that, but he let them rule him to the point that he overtaxed his own people to build their temples to their idols. So in many ways, he betrayed his own people, spiritually and financially.
Okay.
When did he write Ecclesiastes? First part of it,
I think it was at the end.
toward the end.
Yeah. And I really think if you read, and it does you well to read the whole book, and he comes to this conclusion, and basically what he's saying is, I've lived this kind of a life.
He's looking back on his life.
And he says, it's worthless, it's meaningless. And what Solomon had done more than anything else, he had focused his life on things.
Things of this world.
Yeah. I remember going, and do yourself a favor, if a Christian, if one of the mates die in a Christian marriage and they have an auction, don't go. Because you got someone sitting there and they bring out the husband's clock. God forbid that you'd sell those at an auction. And I put my hand up and I say, there's no bids. I'll give you $10. Okay. That woman is sitting there thinking, I gave $3,800 and I bought that for my husband in 1943. And they will hate you forever. Yes. No. Usually when I go, and I went once, and I've told you this before, I went once with a lady that her husband worked for the mines. He would get paid on Friday. When he got home, early Saturday morning, he was rotten drunk, had to be driven home, and no money. So she had to go Friday to get the money. But they were having some financial problems, and they talked about having a sale. And it was a beautiful, I'd never owned a riding lawnmower in my life, and it was a beautiful Craftsman mower. And knowing that that lady needed money, the member of the church with me, it embarrassed me how little he offered her. You going through that, I'll give you double. And God always blesses us. But then you've got this idea of, I leave the church or I leave work. Do your grandchildren even know where their great-grandparents are buried? Do they know the stories? Have you taken and just sat down there at that tombstone? Let me tell you about your great-grandfather. Some of them don't even know the names. And so Solomon is saying, you can leave, and you're going to think the whole world is going to be turned upside down. It won't make one bit of difference unless you've been working on people rather than things. And this is what are worthless. All right, let me ask you this question in view of that. Who has made a difference in your life? Your wife. Should I pursue this, brethren?
I'm gonna call him.
Donna's going to call American Pickers. All right, Mark. Most people in this congregation have made a difference in Mark's life. Who has made a difference in your life? Who? Leon's parents. Parents, you are the number one influencer of your children. Who has made an eternal difference in your life? I saw a sign at the Baptist Church between Coleman, Alabama and Gadsden, Alabama. And we'd have to travel up 278. Before the children were born, that's 43 years ago. Isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, she was early. She was born early. There was a sign there, and I could not wait. I know some people don't think signs are very good. Our church sign ought to be an evangelistic tool that people can't wait. Satan is mighty. And I thought, man, that's kind of bold to put on a church sign. And underneath it said, God is almighty. I never wrote that down. That sign made a difference. Those missionaries that left this country and went to New Zealand have made generational differences in my family. And that without them, without Jim Woodruff and John Payne and Harold Scott, we would not be Christians. My grandmother wouldn't be a Christian. My kids wouldn't be a Christian. And I, like Greg, got to baptize my granddaughter in the bathtub. And I can't tell you whether every toenail was under, every fingernail was under. I baptized her. And so what really matters is people. If you want to live a life that matters, invest in people. And by the way, I was asked the week that I started the sermon on God stood with me, if someone had done me wrong here. If someone would have done me wrong here, I would have come talk to you. You would have known it. That sermon and the ones that will follow, it's kind of like Solomon. It's my life. But it's not just my life, it's whose life? Everybody. And so it's not a matter of someone's done me wrong. I'd talk to you, then I'd talk to the others. They'd know. But have I been done wrong? Yes, absolutely. Who hasn't? Now, what does this book say about those that do you wrong? Give them what? Turn the other cheek. Be careful how we use that. Can you change that outcome? No. So why do we worry about it? Why are we anxious about it? Why do we stay up at night? Solomon said, that's not our life. People that have lives that matter don't worry about the things they can't change. And believe you me, there's some folks that dwell on that for years. But here's what happens. The longer you dwell on it, the more exaggerated it gets. And when you're sitting down, you're thinking, no, that's not what was said. That didn't happen. Invest your time in things that have real meaning. I made the statement that Social Security bought me that Mercedes. And I forget who it was, but I mean without missing a beat, they said, no, you paid for it. Are they right? I almost wrote Social Security a letter and said, thank you. They gave me 6 months up front. That ever happened to anybody? Huh? Yes or no? All right, you pay for things with your time, not your money. How do you get your money? Your time. The work that I did at Joshua, and I know people don't care about what I did, was going to cost him $4,800. That was just one bid from a craftsman who lived about 2 houses down the street. We did it for about $500, if that. Let me correct that one. Huh? Dad did it. All right, let's keep going and let's look at some of the questions. What impact would it have on people around you if you moved to a different community? What impact would it have on your neighbors, your workplace, and your church family? If you move, would it make any difference? I've got 1 or 2 neighbors that they wouldn't miss me. They'd miss seeing me, and a lot of time I've got a veteran. In his military, he was in the Marines, and his flag was kind of looking a little bit ratty. So I bought him a new one and gave it to him, and he's never forgotten it. Every time I go down the road, he makes sure if he's out in the garage, he comes out and waves at me, and I stop and we talk. I got one on the other side. The one I mowed the yard, remember that? 3 inches. If there was a pack out there, she'd be sitting out there singing as loud as she could. Yay, he's moving. Even though now she smiles and laughs and waves at us, she's working on me. So what difference? What difference would it make? What difference would it make if you moved and we do it? Meg Rogers moved to be with the family. Do you miss her? What does Meg mean to you? George has just passed away. What does she mean to you? And I asked Kara. I don't want just in there, Georgia Wolf passed away. You call up Janice and you talk to her. I want to know what her hobbies were, what her interests were. People need to know that. And so if you moved away from the church, what difference would it make?
It'd be a lot quieter.
If you moved, amen.
You really don't know what kind of impact you're making. Like, we walk around our blocks in the neighborhood. It's been quite a while. Just walk around, get some exercise. We quit walking there for a while. We've had people calling us when we're sick.
If my neighbors saw me out walking, they would say, "Are you sick?" They get to know you. They get to see what you do. I've got one neighbor who just sold the house, and she passed the other day, and I was out in my nightgown getting the mail, and she said, "I just had to stop and laugh at you again." So if someone says, Bobby Glenn, Elsie Stewart, what are you thinking? There ought to be a difference that people make in our lives. Another question that we have, do any of the meaningless pursuits that Solomon mentions dominate life right now? See, someone paid $3,800 for a clock that I gave $150 for. That most of the time, you'd be lucky if you got $60 out of it. I want to be there when Donna calls American Pickers and has the auction. Somewhere. But our things just don't count. We had a couple there at Crossroads where we preached. Very dear friends of ours now live in Pulaski. But I remember when they were fixing to move, and I was standing there, and a couple came by, and the realtor brought them by, and she said, "If I can buy this house, if we can live in this house, I'll be the happiest woman around." In about a year, they divorced. Things. They're just things. And so Solomon deals with it, dealing with some of the things that we spend a lifetime. I could not care less whether Cardassian has a hangnail on a foot. I don't care what she drives. I don't care if she's sick. I do not care about any of that, right, Charles? And yet you got people so engrossed in it, and I'm thinking, those people don't have a life. I'm too busy enjoying mine. And so, yes, we have things that we spend a lifetime going after that really don't matter. And believe you me, if my clothes have got someone's name on it, it's going to be mine. Rachel bought me these shoes. Who did? You did? Rachel's mother, what a sweetie. I had never in my life heard of, hey, dude. Have you? Never in my life. So I'm wearing them, and I go in down here at the hardware, and someone says, how do you like your hey, dudes? And I've got that stupid look on my, what do you mean, hey, dudes? And then he finally looked down at my shoes, and he said, I've got a couple of those, and I love them. My wife was so considerate in buying the shoes. Now, I'm glad it was her, because I don't care what is in fashion or what is out of fashion. What does it mean to fear God? Ultimate respect. And it has about 4 different meanings. And what we have a tendency to do, trying to help God's integrity, his reputation. Well, that doesn't mean fear God. Why would we fear God? God can consume me, and I'm told, you fear him. And so the context in which it's being written will determine how that we use that word. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Mark?
Fear him who can destroy the body and the soul.
All right, fear him. And a lot of it ought to get your attention. And we have so softened a lot of the words that they just, I mean, the Bible's written in places, there are expressions that are offensive today because we want them to be offensive. There are times, huh?
I feared my parents when I was growing up and wouldn't. It was fear that I would disappoint them.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't because of what they would do to me.
Okay. And we do that with people. You've got people who spend their whole life trying to please people you can't please. Was that the first or second bell?
Second.
That's the second. All right. Next week we're going to be studying what? Psalms 1 on a victorious life. And that's what matters, our life. I remember when Cadillac came out in Florida with their convertible, a hardtop convertible, and one of the members of the church there, who was a multimillionaire, went and bought it. You put bids in it. You know what that car's worth today? You can't even hardly give them away. It's now they've got, of course, like a lot of them, you know, they'll read your fingerprints and your eyes and everything else. But what we think and we hold precious, and we spend a lifetime doing it, Solomon says it is meaningless. Invest in people. Are you going to get hurt? Yes, you are. But keep investing. It's a good investment. All right, appreciate your attention.